think money equals power? If that were true, every billionaire would run the world. So let me ask you something uncomfortable. Why do some rich people get arrested, while others get invited to rewrite the rules? Why do some fortunes explode loudly and collapse in public, while others quietly survive wars, crashes, scandals, and revolutions? Why do some people buy islands and still panic, while others own nothing visible and never worry? Same money, different outcome. So the question isn't who's rich. The question is, who decides what happens when things go wrong? Money loves attention. Power avoids it. Money reacts to headlines. Power decides which headlines exist. Money spends. Power decides what spending even means. That's the first illusion most people fall for. They see jets, watches, mansions, entourages, and assume control. But what they're really seeing is exposure, because the louder the money, the more fragile it usually is. Real power doesn't look impressive. It looks boring, administrative, unremarkable, and that's exactly why it survives. Old money does not perform success, not because it's modest, but because performance is what you do when your position is still being evaluated. If you feel the need to show where you stand, it means that standing is not guaranteed. Old money understands something new money learns too late. Visibility is not confidence, it's vulnerability. The moment you become visible, you become analyzable. And the moment you're analyzable, you're manageable. That's why you don't see old money competing online. No flexing, no day in the life, no desperate signaling. Attention forces comparison. Comparison forces explanation. Explanation creates weakness. So instead of fighting for relevance, old money disappears into places where relevance is quietly manufactured. Foundations that decide cultural taste. Boards that guide industries behind closed doors. Universities that define what expert knowledge even means. Legal frameworks that outlive governments and scandals. They don't own companies, they sit above them. CEOs change. Markets crash, brands die, the structure remains. When a market collapses, old money doesn't panic. It relocates influence inside the wreckage. When regulation tightens, it recognizes familiar logic in the language, because it helped shape the thinking years earlier. When an industry pivots, old money isn't surprised. It funded the transition before it was public. This isn't brilliance, it's infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't need applause. You only notice it when it's gone. New money is fast, sometimes brilliant, sometimes ruthless, sometimes lucky. Tech exits, speculative bubbles, short-term monopolies, gray zone industries that explode before anyone asks too many questions. The money arrives overnight, and that's the problem. Because speed without insulation is just momentum waiting to crash. New money hasn't had time to build gravity, no institutional trust, no historical weight, no buffer. So it compensates. The cars get louder, the watches get bigger, the homes get flashier, the lifestyle gets documented, not to dominate others, to reassure itself. Because deep down, new money is haunted by one thought. What if this disappears the way it came? That's why new money wants proof. Proof that it's real. Proof that it's permanent. Proof that it belongs. Old money never needs proof, because proof is only required when loss is still imaginable. And here's where things get ugly. Look at the pattern. Crypto kings collapsing on camera. Tech founders crying in court. Celebrities turned billionaires exposed overnight. Luxury frauds, fake valuations, hollow empires. Loud rise, public fall. Why? Because visibility accelerates consequences. New money lives in the spotlight. and the spotlight has no mercy. Every mistake becomes content. Every weakness becomes leverage. Every excess becomes a headline. Old money watches this with zero emotion, not because they're smarter, but because they're protected. When scandals hit old money, you don't see mugshots. You see settlements, quiet exits, restructuring, nothing dramatic. Because power doesn't collapse loudly, it dissolves problems silently. New money believes power is something you buy, like real estate, like access, like reputation. They assume that enough money automatically converts into influence, and that influence naturally turns into control. This is the most expensive misunderstanding in modern wealth culture. Old money knows something radically different. Power is never owned. It is granted, and always conditionally. New money thinks access comes from wealth, from net worth, from visibility, from being impressive enough to be invited into the room. Old money understands that access comes from necessity, not because you're rich, but because removing you would create friction, damage, instability. That's why the real question is never, how much do you have? That question only matters at the surface. The real question is, what breaks if you disappear? Does a system stall? Does a process slow down? Does a decision suddenly become impossible? Real power begins exactly there, when your absence causes inconvenience first, then damage, and eventually fear. When removing you becomes expensive. When ignoring you creates consequences others don't want to deal with. That's why old money doesn't chase relevance. Relevance chases them. Because relevance is not about being seen, it's about being unavoidable. They don't negotiate loudly. Loud negotiation signals weak leverage. They don't demand access. Demands reveal dependence. They don't explain themselves. Explanations invite resistance. They wait. Time is not neutral at that level. Time is pressure. Time exposes who needs whom more. Urgency always reveals the weaker side of a deal. And old money has trained itself to never appear urgent, even when it is. New money rushes to close. Old money lets the situation mature until the outcome becomes inevitable. And most people never realize they lost, because nothing dramatic happened. No confrontation, no argument, just a slow shift where the center of gravity quietly moved away from them. That's the difference nobody teaches you, because it can't be sold, and it can't be rushed. Power almost never attacks head-on. That's what insecure people do. That's what new money expects, because that's how conflict looks at lower levels. Real power filters. You don't get rejected. You don't get humiliated. You don't get exposed. Those are emotional reactions, and power avoids emotion whenever possible. Instead, you get phased out. At first, nothing feels wrong. Calls take a little longer to come back. Meetings get postponed. Introductions stop happening. You tell yourself everyone's busy. You assume timing is off. You think it's temporary. Then information dries up. Decisions get made without you. Conversations you used to be part of simply stop existing. No emails explaining why. No messages saying you're out. No dramatic fallout. Just silence. That silence is not accidental. It's procedural. It's how hierarchies protect themselves without creating enemies, scandals, or resistance. Because confrontation creates noise, and noise attracts attention. Filtering leaves nothing to fight against. New money often misreads this silence as peace, as neutrality, as everything's fine. Old money knows exactly what it is. It's classification. You've been evaluated, you've been measured, and you've been sorted, quietly, efficiently, and permanently. By the time new money realizes what's happening, it's already too late. Because there is no door to knock on anymore. The door was never slammed shut, it was simply removed. That's how real exclusion works at the top. No drama, No enemies, no explanations. Just a clean system adjusting itself and leaving unnecessary parts behind. Being rich is easy now. Being powerful isn't. Wealth can be earned, lost, rebuilt. Power must be absorbed slowly, quietly, invisibly. If you're still proving your success, you're not dangerous. If you still need attention, you're not in control. Because the people who truly pull the strings don't stand in the spotlight. They design the stage. They choose who's allowed on it. And they remain unseen while everyone else performs. So the next time you see someone flexing wealth, ask yourself one question. Are they powerful? Or are they just very expensive entertainment? If this video made you think, if it showed you a world you always felt was real but no one ever dared to explain, then you're exactly where you need to be. Fake-off luxury isn't about admiration, it's about revelation. We uncover the systems the elite will never discuss and reveal what luxury really means behind the curtain. If you're ready to see more, subscribe, give it a like, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because in this world, those who know the rules play a completely different game.